Man, is that the Reefer man?
That's the Reefer, man.
Marijuana.
I believe he's losing his mind.
I think he's lost his mind.
Reefer Madness Radio. What is up, everybody? Reefer Madness Radio, Friday night, coming at you. This is the 9th show in a row. This is pretty cool. It is November 29th, 2013. Got a pretty cool show here. Jay, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well, my friend. It's the day after Thanksgiving, and I think we're still recovering from the festivities, shall I say.
Tryptophan.
Yeah. It's funny, tryptophan, you know. I had this conversation with a friend last night. You know, all we really need to do is just send turkey and pie everywhere around the world. Turkey and pie. If everybody ate turkey and pie at the same time all around the world, there would be peace. What can I say? Either that or a massive run towards the... Yeah, never mind. There would be peace. Yes, there would be peace. Tonight we're joined, as we told you last week, we would try to get. And tonight we're joined by my friend Jason Luave, who is one of the biggest hemp activists
This is awesome.
in the country. So we brought Jason here to help discuss hemp and all things hemp.
Because we don't know much about it.
Yeah, I would really like to have people call in or, text in, chat in, and ask questions. Let's get some questions going about hemp, right? There was a recent harvest and all that. Yeah, we can start right there. I think pretty much everybody who listens to our show is going to know what hemp is. But my understanding, you guys, there are three basic subspecies of the cannabis plant, right? There's the sativa, the indica, and what they call the vulgaris, or the hemp. Is that correct, Jason?
The ruderalis.
Ruderalis. Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about hemp, actually, as we get into this wonderful world of something that has been thought of as a burlap sack and a rope for so many years, and it's so much more. So
we always had hemp twine.
Yeah, hemp twine has been fantastic. It's very resilient for seaworthy boats and those kinds of things because it doesn't rot. Like
I'm saying my mom always had it in the house. Like we always had a spool of hemp twine in the house.
Probably from Hungary originally, is my guess.
Maybe. I don't know where it was from, but
Maybe
we used it to tie everything up.
Maybe it was American hemp.
From chickens to... I'm not that old.
You tie... I'm just kidding. We might as well get a laugh in there, right?
Yeah, wherever we can, brother.
Hemp, a lot of people actually from the medical side of things and the social use of cannabis side of things always ask me, is hemp going to hurt my crops? Are we going to get seeded? And, just to kind of get that question quickly answered, the radius for pollen travel that we have come across so far has been about 7 to 11 miles based on the local topography. Of course, it travels differently over water and so on and so forth. But it shouldn't be much of an issue. And if you're zoned agricultural and you're in those areas of southern Colorado or western slope or northeastern Colorado, then, you will see hemp growth very quickly. We're already starting projects. Gosh, we started one a year ago. And then Ryan Laughlin from Springfield planted his harvest this year and harvested as well, October 5th and 6th.
How many hemp harvests have there been?
Here?
Yeah.
So we actually had, there were about 25 farmers total. So Ryan was the only public one who had the guts to be public about this, if you will, and stand up to the stereotypes that were out there.
The scrutiny as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think, we really wanted to see, was there going to be any scrutiny? And there really wasn't. It was supported across the board. Everybody was so excited. The media was very, very supportive from the day we planted, the day he planted. I missed that day, all the way till the harvest days. And I was present for that as well, which was very exciting.
Wow. What does it take to plant? I mean, and why is it that only one or so few people? Why isn't every farmer devoting a couple of acres to it, or why isn't?
That's a really good question. That's a very good question. industrial hemp has been in the minds of society illegal since the Marijuana Tax Act. Actually, the last legal planting was 1958, and that was because of the Hemp for Victory war effort. We were cut off from Manila hemp and needed access to hemp, so we grew it here ourselves. But
it was convenient for the government to, suspend its own law
Right.
for the sake of the war effort. But as soon as the effort was over, then cannabis was once again evil.
Well, right now, what it really takes is in the state of Colorado, the registration system, the regulations, if you will, were just released, and they're pretty basic. You don't need a background check. You just need to pay a fee. So it's a $200 registration fee, and then a per acre fee. I think it's a $1 per acre, if I remember right. And I should know this. I don't have my notes in front of me.
$1 per acre sounds pretty cheap.
It's
right?
Honestly, I don't think
nothing.
I don't think it should be a fee, and the fee will drop as we start to get more and more farmers on board. But
Right, as it becomes more normalized.
it's the fear that has kept a lot of people from this.
Because it's still federally illegal.
Yeah.
Well, it's fear and ignorance.
I don't want to call it ignorance necessarily. What I see is that the farmers have a lot to risk. They could lose their farms.
You know what? I'm not talking about the farmers, Jason. I'm talking about the general populace.
Oh, I gotcha.
Right?
I gotcha.
I was talking to my older sister.
All right, I'll agree with you in some cases there.
I was talking to my older sister today, and she's just still under the sway of the propaganda, right? She
I
doesn't
can't blame
even
them,
she doesn't
actually.
know about the research around the world.
Yeah.
She doesn't know about the research going on here.
Yeah.
She hasn't heard, and so she just in her eyes, it's just this bad, evil thing, and until society changes its.
What's funny
perception
though
of it.
is I see that the instant, like Sanjay Gupta spoke about medical cannabis and the use for, say, Chasmore and Colorado Springs, and how it benefits them. All of a sudden, so many people just all of a sudden said, "Oh yes, I do support cannabis," and I think it's a comfort thing. Whether it's
Right.
whether it's
that's all it takes sometimes is for the one of
Yes.
a person with the attention of the public, right, is what it boils down to. Someone
then the
who's
stigma goes
already
away.
in a position where they're trusted as an authority.
Yeah, because I could go home to my family and I could see I could provide them all this research on PubMed, or I could provide them with all kinds of people that have been in the industry and doing it, and people that they have this and look, they've spent their lifetime just whatever, Jack Hare, people with different just diseases that have shown that it's cured them or just helped them anyway. But no, it would be if someone from the mainstream media just was like, you know what, I support it.
So
That's really what they need.
That was actually a big issue for me with all of this. I have had quite a bit of experience on the cannabis side of things in the industry, if you will, for many years.
Right.
But when the hemp side of it came up for me, it was a different challenge, if you will, a different audience. And fortunately, I've had experience also in the farming realm for many years with a lot of my schooling. Spent 9 years or parts of 9 years on a working farm in upstate New York. But that said, I had to really connect with the farmers. I had to create a relationship with these people who really are, I'll have to say, a little skeptical because of what's happened over the years. Whether it's seed companies that come in and say, here's a miracle thing that's going to help you out, which is kind of what we're doing. But or chemical or a herbicide or a pesticide that has destroyed their land, or whatever that we've seen as a result. And so they've been up till now very, very supportive, and I think they're going to get even more so over the next few years. But in the beginning, it wasn't that easy. I was speaking to a very stoic crowd.
Right on.
That was very quiet, and
they do have reason to be skeptical.
Absolutely. But what's interesting is they all know about hemp. And
Sure, because if they're farmers, then they used to grow it.
Right.
Or their
or
grandparents did.
they've heard about it. And they see the condition of their soil. They're very familiar with what's going on right now with water and so on and so forth. The other interesting thing about this is the host family that brought me down to Walsh, Colorado originally in 2010. to do my first talk in front of the farmers, Diane Irwin, her family was the host family as well that started the Tractorcade in 1979, if I remember right, where they drove all their tractors to Washington, D.C. And they were trying to create parity between a bushel of wheat and a barrel of oil, which would have been awesome. They didn't succeed in that. But to see the drive of actually taking their vehicles to D.C. was pretty impressive.
Right? You know,
awesome.
it still counts
is.
for
It
something,
really is.
the public action, right?
It's huge.
Especially
That's
when
critical.
you get a lot of people together. You know, today I interviewed a guy named John Sinclair who was imprisoned in Michigan for 2 joints. He was serving 10 years. And this was way back in the day, right? So a whole bunch of people got together to rally for John Sinclair, Freedom Rally for John Sinclair in 1969. And a lot of celebrities showed up. Stevie Wonder was there. Abby Hoffman was there.
John Lennon's spirit was there.
John Lennon was there, yes. As a matter of fact, John Lennon wrote a song
That's
for John Sinclair.
That's right.
And a few days after the rally, he was released from prison. John Sinclair was released from prison.
Yeah. So I'm glad you actually mentioned that, and that sort of is something that, and I don't want to get sidetracked into my case specifically, but that reminds me of my experience. But that's where we're at right now. What we're doing, it takes people's action.
Right, and we're trying to get the public to sway its opinion en masse. You know, like we've seen in the last year, we've seen public opinion rise to almost the 60% level across the country in favor of legalization. I think the last poll that was published that I saw was like 58%.
The social use record for
Yeah, and I bet
social use,
most of
right,
those polls, it's not about like should we legalize hemp. It should we legalize weed so people can smoke it.
Right.
Is what people are thinking about. But I feel like even with Amendment 64, hemp is the kind of forgotten, stepchild.
But that's
whatever
important
you
that you
call
brought
it.
that up because we actually wrote it into Amendment 64, didn't we?
Well, there
Right?
were 3 pieces that happened. There was HB 1099 in 2012, and then in 2013 we had in the end of 2012 there was 64, and then the beginning of 2013 there was SB 13241. And
Oh
so
yeah, that was my favorite one.
the first one was the remediation, the hemp remediation. I love all these numbers and acronyms, right?
Yeah.
So the first one,
History.
to
Let's
get to
remember
simple
these.
English, if you will, the first one was the hemp remediation pilot program. And so technically that was the first program to allow industrial hemp. That started last year. And so we got that passed.
Right on.
And then 64 has a definition in there. It separates industrial hemp from cannabis or marijuana.
And that's the important distinguishing feature because the federal government would like to lump it all together as this one thing. Like they wanted to outlaw cannabis as some kind of harmful substance, harmful psychoactive substance,
It
right?
actually gets more fun than that.
But they went in and they grouped hemp in with that, and it was a political decision for financial reasons.
This gets actually a little bit more fun than this. So if you guys want to get a little into your computers tonight, go ahead and look up the 1961 Single Convention of Narcotic Drugs and read Article 28. And then after that, read 23 in that order and switch the word opium for marijuana as it suggests. And what you'll see is it says that, and this is a treaty that we signed with the UN with over almost 200 other countries, is that there is a piece that says that we can create an agency to regulate medical, horticultural, and recreational use of marijuana. And so when I read that, I saw something in there that kind of drew my attention. I encourage you all to read it and use it because that's really what I want to really get at here. We have some information across the board that has been demonstrated in Colorado and other states, and it's not secret stuff. We want to share this with everybody. We want to teach other states, how do you do this? How do you implement hemp regulations? And so what I'm getting at with the 61 convention is that as long as we're creating some sort of regulatory system, the federal government actually has said this. They've acknowledged as long as we're regulating, they don't really have an issue with it, you know. And so, yes, there are some problems. The RICO Act is an issue. 280E and the IRS tax code's a problem. Banking's an issue.
Yep.
But these are things that we can overcome if the country as individuals get engaged. And that doesn't really just apply to cannabis. It applies to our education, our food, and so on and so forth, immigration. A lot of us tend to sit back and say, okay, I'm going to vote, you know, when it comes around for presidential elections. I encourage you to go to your capital during legislative session. Go voice your opinion, testify during, you know, session about the bills that concern you or even that don't concern you, just to get experience, just to have that practice.
You know, it's a good idea.
You can make a change. You really can.
When I lived in D.C., I had the opportunity to actually go to Congress a few times when I interned for various agencies and did things, you know. And I agree. I think it's more than just a civic duty, folks. It's
absolutely
it's exercising your rights, and
you can make change.
Yeah, if really we don't do it, somebody else will exercise them for you, which is basically what has happened in
and that's where the big money lobbyists really do have power. You know, you really don't need a ton of money if you do a citizens initiative, for example, in Colorado. You can pull stuff off. You know, the hemp bill really was an example of something that we did for very, very little money, a lot of support, but very little money compared to what I hear is needed to do, you know, other things in other places. So get involved in these things, ask questions about how to do these, you know, how to get these initiatives. And in other states, there are different processes, of course, but you can see what's happening in Florida, in New Jersey, for example, the hemp, the agricultural committee in New Jersey has passed industrial hemp, so it's moving through their legislative process. Yep. You know, this is happening, folks, and I encourage you to get involved. And really what I want to demonstrate in this sort of big picture thing is that it's not a burlap sack. It's biomaterials, if you will, for the aerospace industry. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, these companies, Toyota, Lotus, the Kestrel, Bugatti, they're all using hemp in some way or another in their cars, not just for body panels and insulation, but for collision parts, for seats, for fabrics. And a lot of you already know you can use it for fuels.
Right. I have a friend who wants to make a bicycle of hemp.
There's a company up in Fort Collins that does their tube stem pieces out of wrapped hemp.
Right on.
I think it's a bamboo bike company, if I remember right.
That's so cool.
So you're gonna see awesome. Epoxies made out of cellulose and water.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going that way. You know, the fossil fuel industry is a dinosaur, so to speak.
They know that,
and they know. And I think if they're smart, eventually, I mean, we're going to ride petroleum till it's gone. Right?
I hope but not.
We'll have to transition into a viable alternative, and I think hemp can be that viable alternative. Right?
Well, it's a keystone. It's a piece of everything. So you bring up the petroleum thing, which is a really important piece. Buckminster Fuller has a book called Operation Manual for a Spaceship Earth, and he talks about how petroleum can help us get to the biofuels. What's interesting is that Rudolf Diesel already took us to the biofuels.
Right on.
About 120 years ago.
Right. The first diesel engine was designed to run on peanut oil.
On vegetable oils, correct. And one of those is peanut oil, one's, hemp oil and others. I'm not a big fan of corn ethanol and that kind of stuff because of the energy it takes to make it.
You're not getting the right kind of return.
No, but we have to look at systems in general, closed loop systems. There are a lot of issues that we have to look. It's not just here's hemp, let's plug it in, it's going to solve everything.
I thought that's all we had to do. Like if I smoke this bowl right here, won't it solve everything?
Everything. You got cash in your pocket, roof over your head, right? It's kind of cool how that happens.
It's amazing.
Talk about it, and then it maybe actually will happen. But the power of the mind, suggestive mind. But, actually you asked a question earlier that I kind of didn't really finish was how do farmers get into this and why have there not been more of them?
Yeah.
At this point, Ryan was really the guinea pig. I think he's done a wonderful job in terms of taking those perceived risks of what would happen. I think because of the regulation and the systems, because of the bills we talked about, all three of them, I think because of that structure, he was pretty well protected. I think in the interim, we didn't have regulations at the time, so he did what he did, and he was correct, I think, totally about it.
So there was like one guy that was essentially kind of willing to
To be public.
and do it, and if it went as well as, or if he was able to cash his crop without the feds coming down on him, then maybe more people are going to do it. Or
I think
was he
we wanted to see would there would be a response, in terms of legal response. I know that there's a lot of response locally in the a lot of supports locally in the state from all sorts of departments in the government and law enforcement. In terms of what the federal government was going to do, we didn't know.
I can't imagine they're that concerned with hemp.
It's ridiculous, honestly. I mean, really, what is hemp? Hemp is it's a food, it's a fiber, it's a fuel, it's a filter. It's something that if you look around you right now, every one of you, if you look around at the plastics and the surfaces and the paints and the carpets and your clothes, every single thing can be made from hemp. And not only can it just be made from hemp, but it performs better, it's stronger, it doesn't outgas, it won't contaminate your environment. It'll clean your environment, you'll be healthier. It's antimicrobial, it'll kill molds because of the content of, say, hemp concrete or hemp block. So the building materials are fire resistant, they're not going to smoke and outgas, which is a problem for our firemen, for example. Our firemen and firewomen out there have COPD issues, and it's from the burning stuff that they have to deal with. And if we
Right
just
on, the
switch
plastics and all kinds of chemicals that they go
that
into.
water bottle you're drinking out of, right? That water contains so many contaminants just because of the plastic that you're holding it in.
Contaminants.
Yeah.
It tastes so good.
So I mean, to me, it's let's stop using things like recyclable and start using things like repurpose and reuse. Let's use fabrics that don't stink after camping for 7 days. I hate coming back with other fabrics and I'm reeking. I get back in the car.
I don't know. I kind of like that reek after a nice long camping trip.
That might be a personal thing, right? Your wife might like that.
No, I can tell you for sure she doesn't. You know what? I think we haven't taken a break, and we're getting on to 7:00 here.
Let's take
We're going to take a break. And before I take a break, I just wanted to mention again, Daily Doobie is a sponsor of this show. The December issue will be hitting stands in the next week or so. So be sure to ask for it if you don't see it at your dispensary. And don't forget to look for it online, dailydoobie.com.
Nice.
The Law Office of Edson Maton and Matz provides criminal defense, family law, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running a medical marijuana center, optional premises cultivation operation, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout the state of Colorado. We're focused on providing high-quality service and customer satisfaction. We will do everything we can to meet your expectations. WarrenEdson.com. Edson Maton and Matz in Denver, 303-831-8188, and in Aspen, 970-948-7183. WarrenEdson.com.
Ideal 420 soil is preloaded to perfection with all your nutrient, microbial, and biostimulant needs. It's compatible with all strains and is good for a 22-week grow cycle from seed to harvest. This product is 100% organic and gives your marijuana that awesome aroma and smooth taste we all desire. Ideal 420 Technologies is well-grounded in soil chemistry, soil physics, and microbial biology, making them the most advanced soil company in the marijuana industry. They do the science so growers can focus on what truly matters, the plants themselves. No more mixing and feeding of expensive nutrient lines, supplements, and foliar sprays. Not to mention, the company is prideful in being the most consistent soil product that has yet to hit the market. Due to the results when using Ideal 420 soil, they are quickly changing the standard for cannabis cultivation. To order the product, go to ideal420soil.com. Use promo code INTHELAB for an additional 20% off.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
Right on, Reefer Madness Radio, everybody. Thanks for watching. Definitely now is the time if you want to call. Feel free to call on iCannabisradio.com. There's the phone number there at the top. Definitely give us a call. There's also the chat. Feel free to ask some questions, voice some comments. My first question, again, is where did the first crop go? And where is the T-shirts and the clothing and the fuel and Where's that?
That's a great question, Mark. Thanks for bringing us back to that. Yes, you are on the spot now, Jason.
So
Tell
Ryan
us where did it go?
Laughlin's crop is everyone wants to know what happened. There were a lot of myths. A lot of people are interested in it. Not to get too detailed, but he still has most of it in his possession. He wants to hold on to. He's kind of gone back and forth, and I don't blame him. You know, it's kind of hard to figure out what to do with that first thing. It's historic in a lot of ways, and so many artisans want to make paper with it, or they want to make the first bottled soap oil, or they want to make, whatever.
Has it been processed at
Has
all?
he been bombarded with requests?
He's cleaned, yes. He has been bombarded with requests, and he has cleaned the seed. He's kept the seed. I think he's going to keep some of it for himself, and then he's probably going to process some of it. The fiber, most likely, will be turned into some sort of artisan paper, is my guess, and then maybe some demonstration pieces for hemp concrete materials.
We're not
various
talking
things
about
like
a
that.
lot of hemp here,
No.
right? So it's not like
No.
how much was grown?
If I remember right, it's somewhere along the lines of total accumulation of 1,200 pounds. So
So that was grown in like a 3 by 3 foot area, right?
yeah, it really should have been.
No, I'm kidding about that, of course. But it's not 1,200 pounds when you think of
Really,
the bulk.
I'll give you some numbers here. So an acre of hemp on average should be about 5,000 pounds of material. That material could range up to 7,000 pounds. It could be as low as, as we see in this number, 55 acres, 1,200 pounds. So not that that's literal, because it was really scattered out all over the place. It wasn't planted properly. It wasn't sown in the soil in certain cases. There were different experiments that were done. So
Were you guys hiding it?
no.
I'm just curious.
No, this was announced. I mean, there was a broadcast on the news when we planted, so this was all announced. So Ryan really just took the initiative and did all of that PR himself and got the word out there. We supported him in the beginning as Hemp Cleans, and along the way, of course, Eric Hunter and Linda Parker went down to his farm for the planting. Eric Hunter is the research and development director for Hemp Cleans as well. And so, so what's going to happen, to give you an idea, so back to the numbers, is we want to see, those thousands of pounds come out of that acre. And a lot of that is going to be fiber material. A lot of it is going to be seed material. We need to figure out the cultivars. So right now, there are 3 cultivars that were planted in general in Colorado, and there are probably about 50 that we really want to experiment with.
Cultivars are those different strains?
Yeah, so strains or varieties. In the hemp world, they're cultivars.
Right on.
Yeah.
Just clarify.
Really?
Lingos are really, I love,
I've never heard that.
lingo's important to me. Just as, we don't use marijuana in our conversations very much. We like cannabis.
Right on.
I respect that.
Yeah. So there's certain, just some semantics, if you will, that we kind of follow. But so, thank you for asking that.
Sure.
So then once we figure that out, then we need to develop seed. So we can do fake seed, for example. So you can do tissue culture kind of approach and make your own seeds, which is one approach. We could fly a plane in or many planes in and drop lots of seed. Not literally drop it from the plane, but land the plane
I
safely.
thought turkeys could fly.
Wait,
and seed
you don't-
properly.
You don't just like plant rows? and
Oh yeah,
it grows?
yeah. We could do that, but right now we don't have enough seed stock. So our goal, for example, would be to plant, maybe 20, 30,000 acres in the next few years. Next year would be great,
Yeah.
which would be pretty comparable, pretty close to what Canada's producing. They're close to about 50,000 acres, just to throw out a quick number. And there are people who would demand it. And a lot of people say, and I talk about this a lot, we got to be careful not to overproduce, because every country that has attempted this, not everyone, has overproduced in the beginning and then they recover. Canada went through that. It took them about 7 years to recover.
How can you overproduce when there's so many uses for it, and we have this
Good question.
demand for fuels
Yeah,
and all this thing?
Because the market
Transportation.
isn't really there yet.
Well,
Transportation?
no, think about Canada. Canada is limited because they have 30 million people in their country, and their only real export market, 80% of it, if you will, is to us. And so that market is limited by your shipping costs in terms of the demand. So right now, if you look at hemp seed in the market, it's pretty expensive. And so you're looking at transportation cost. Hemp doesn't like to be transported. I shouldn't say it doesn't like, economically it doesn't like to be transported. It needs to be processed locally, and then you can ship those materials. It'll then cost less to ship those materials. But beyond that, it's something that if you look at now Colorado, which is kind of cool, we're on two major transportation corridors, essentially, in the center of the country. And we have 6 million farmable acres in the state of Colorado. 1 million of that is corn, approximately. And so if you just take a portion of that, you now look at what the actual market is around us. And so our infrastructure in Colorado, you could say, wait a minute, there's OSB manufacturing, there's oil press, right? We have lime locally, so you can make hemp concrete or hemp blocks materials locally pretty easily. Now people ask, let's skip a lot of these things. Let's skip down to fabric. Fabric's going to take a long time, I think, and not a huge amount of time, but 5 or 10 years maybe.
Is it because of the amount of hemp that would be necessary, or
quality.
is it because it's the quality?
It's the quality. Yeah, we need long, consistent fibers that are fine. So you know, and I have seen a 17-foot high hemp plant in the state of Colorado, so it's possible. It's beautiful.
Walk through the field.
It's so cool to see.
I've seen pictures. I think it's like Mark and Jody Emery. There went some fields in Canada of hemp fields, and I'm like, wow, that would be awesome.
We don't have them here yet, but we will in the next year or so.
Why? I guess this might seem like a really dumb question. Why isn't Canada turning hemp into fuel or clothes and trucking it down to us, or especially even fuel? Because are we not like having it flown in from the Middle East? Why is that easier than getting hemp from Canada?
So there are multiple fuel sources that can come out of hemp. A lot of people think of the oil right away. You know, if you look at oil costs, oil is going to run you about $15 to $58 a gallon for hemp oil. So you obviously don't want to turn that into fuel. You want fuel to be produced under $2 a gallon, which can be done, but we need to be able to I'll call it overproduce enough hemp to get to that point, because the demand for all the other products is so high.
Yeah. Also, it needs to be pointed out that the infrastructure isn't really there.
That's the biggest piece.
We could use hemp to fuel biodiesel cars and actually diesel engines, but as far as the actual infrastructure, it's a big reason why we don't have hydrogen vehicles, right? They exist, the technology exists, but in order to be able to fuel them across the country, there need to be fueling stations.
We actually have. This is where it gets kind of cool. In the state of Colorado, there are facilities that could actually be slightly modified and process fuels out of hemp. It's pyrolysis, or those of you who are familiar with gasification. You can produce diesel, jet fuel, gas, high-octane fuel. Waste product is water. And so you're producing fuels that have no benzenes, for example, in them, which are a little bit safer.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But so I actually worked on some interesting projects in my past life before the cannabis and hemp world on cellulase, ethanol, and things like that. But what we're looking at here, honestly, is that we really need to get infrastructure, for example, in place that's not just one pipeline that one person owns. It needs to be a cooperative relationship. This plant almost asks us to be community level in terms of what we're making. And so producing it, we need decorticators, we need seed expellers, we need dust cleaners, we need delignifiers, if you will, and all these other machines to create the products that we actually want to produce, cutters, whatever. And so there are facilities in Canada. There are more demonstration facilities. There is one full-fledged 36,000 ton per year facility up there, if I remember right, and a couple others that are smaller. But we need one here right away. We could actually fit in the state probably 10 to 15 of them right now. I think the demand is that high. And let me get to that specifically in terms of demand. So people are going to keep saying, oh, but there's only food. There's only the fiber, right, for fabrics. But stop and step back for a second, like I had mentioned earlier. What if you had a furniture store that was hemp? Or if you had your car parts like Toyota on the East Coast? What if they actually produced car parts out of hemp? Locally, we have a windmill company in Walsenburg that produces big windmill blades.
The big blades for the giant windmills.
Vestas, right. So they could use the material locally. Animal bedding. It could be high-end animal bedding products because it absorbs better and so on and so forth. It's
Right. I think we all agree that there are a lot of uses for it. I think the real question is, how do we develop the market for those uses, right?
So there was a meeting about this.
We know there's a million ways to use it. This is what I meant by the infrastructure. There's just no. We can make car parts from it, but no one's doing that. We could make
the decorticators and
right, we could make a rabbit cage liners with it, but nobody's doing it. And we need to get people to start doing that. People aren't going to start doing that until the mores change, and which brings me back to that conversation I had with my sister. It's like until the general population understands that hemp is useful and cannabis is medicine, then we're not going to make any progress. It's just all there is.
But there's plenty of demand for it already. It seems like it's more a matter of we just need to grow more.
You know what?
And then more people will want
there's
it.
Plenty of demand for it, Mark.
He said there was.
Because you are in the cannabis industry, but there are 350 some million people in this nation, and believe it or not, most of them don't smoke.
You make me wonder, are we going to have a big party when there's 420 million in the nation?
Woot! I think so, yeah.
It's not a matter of them smoking it, but it's of right now we have X amount of hemp, and there's more. Yeah. It seems like there's more demand.
There actually
the demand is high right now.
So here's
we
where
need
it's
to
coming from.
Grow more, and then.
So here's the answer to that actually specifically, and you're right. It does seem like we could easily say we amongst ourselves do see that, but I'm really interested in the mainstream and what they see also.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking about.
So
the mainstream.
We look at the bill sponsorship, for example. We had 38 sponsors on the bill, whereas most bills only need 4. We had unanimous support across the board for the bill. And this is all legislative stuff. And these are folks, obviously, that over the years have learned a little bit more about cannabis, but a lot of them are against cannabis still. And so on the medical side and recreational side. And so then to go beyond that, I would look at Vermont and Maine and Washington, Oregon. There's actually close to 30 states that have already passed legislation or tried to pass legislation over the years. And the coming years, you're going to see New Jersey, you're going to see states come on board that you never expected. Kentucky, obviously, we've seen come on board. And so I think people really do recognize this at this point. The consumer level, you can find hemp seed in the supermarket. You're going to see your first hemp cookbook, full-fledged hemp cookbook come out from Hemp Plus. Derek Cross from Texas will be producing that. In terms of Dr. Oz has talked about this already on his shows multiple times. So I think you will see this jump from the early adopter stage will cross that chasm into the mainstream pretty quickly.
Right on, Jason. Listen, you guys, we're getting on 7:10, and this.
Oh wow!
Time,
it is 7:10.
This time we are going to actually recognize it at 7:10. That's why I'm talking, and we're going to take that. So check it out, you guys. You probably can't see it. Mark's hitting it right now, but I picked up something new. I got a Debuta vaporizer, which I got the oil attachment for. These, of course, will be available at mountainhighcolorado.co. Coming up, probably working on that this weekend. So basically, it's an e-dabber, right? It's an e-nail, and I'm loving it.
It's an interesting thing because I know a lot of people that have a Debuta, and to be able to just put an apparatus on it to make it an electric way to dab.
Oh, it tastes so good.
I think that's genius because really the e-nail setups are actually quite expensive.
Yep.
So
and,
I mean, they're worth it maybe, but
you know what? I really like the e-dabber because it's always on, right? And we've got Mark's treehouse attached to it, which is just really smooth, right? But
you have a tie nail in
something
there.
Everyone can afford.
Chris said he's heard of the quartz nail in there. Yeah, exactly. It's going to be affordable because those emails are hundreds of dollars.
Yep. And this will still be a couple $100, but
Well, I mean, if
you
you
can
already
use it
have
as-
the Debuta,
Oh,
which
right,
a
then
lot
it-
of people already have,
then the oil kit is really affordable. And the thing is, like I didn't realize this until tonight, but they shipped it with 2 wands, so I can use 1 wand for oil,
Yep.
1 wand for flour, and it doesn't mix that taste.
yeah, because you really wouldn't want to mix the taste very much. But so, I guess still, I'm like, if the first crop there was a demand for it, a lot of people wanting it. Is the next crop? Is that be the same thing? It's going to be a little bit better crop, and is there going to be a lot of demand for it in a way where he would be selling at a profitable rate? Right? Is he going for this? Is he going to do more? Like, is it?
He and many, many more farmers are going to come on board. So
Cool.
our goal is to bring everybody else on board who was interested this last year, but a little hesitant, plus the other 25 or 24 roughly farmers who already participated, but they would be part of the registration program in the state.
Maybe get them to increase their yield.
So my statement out there really is, let's try and get 100 farmers to do 2 circles each. And
Circle?
2 center pivot circles.
Right, a circle he's referring to when you drive down the highway and you see those big sprinkler systems and they go around in a circle and they actually create
Actually
a circular
invented in the state of Colorado.
plot. A circular plot. And how many acres is one of those things?
About 145 on average.
So
150.
it's about
They
a
can
quarter
vary.
section.
If you Google Earth Colorado and get up close, it's like things are in these weird.
Yeah, go to
patterns.
Google Earth. You'll see all the crop circles, if you will.
No, but like because I grew up in
circles, that's good, Jason.
I grew up in Iowa, and there is not. I mean, you see some sprinkler systems, but not nearly.
Iowa
as you
has
see.
water, man. It's like between the Missouri
So
and the Mississippi
is-
floodplains.
Is
So farming
Where's the best place in the United States to grow hemp?
everywhere.
Where's the best place?
It really,
where's the
so
climate?
this is an interesting.
Could Iowa grow
it's-
better crop
It
than
really
Colorado?
depends on what you're trying to grow. So think about a cube. On your vertical axis is going to be your cultivar, as I mentioned earlier, your seed type, right?
Uh-huh.
On your horizontal axes, if you will, so this is like XYZ axis stuff that we learned in school.
I don't know what school you went to.
Well, I don't know, but anyway. So here's the next axis is going to be your location, if you will.
Or
so what's
environment.
what's your soil type, what's your elevation, that kind of stuff.
If they'd involved weed with geometry and math, I would have been a lot better at it. If
Well,
they-
let me take this even further.
No,
Then
but no, you should.
the
Continue
next
that.
complexity, the next third level, is don't think about math. I'm not trying to make this complex because it really is pretty simple. But then you look at what you're creating, or you look at what you want to create first, and say you want to create car parts, or you want to create food, or you want to create epoxies, or because your oil for food is going to taste good, right? Your epoxy oil is not going to taste good. Your food for poultry and hogs and so on and so forth is going to be different than the food you feed your kid.
Right on.
And so your fiber for your car, for your clothes, for your diapers, for your medical apparel, your so on and so forth.
So
is
you've got
different.
3 axes: the kind of seed you're looking at, the environment in which it's going to be grown in, and the type of product you're ultimately going to produce.
Correct.
With it.
So we have a lot of research, if you will, to do for the area that we live in. We haven't done this in the state for many, many years, for more than 60 years. And the soil has changed, obviously. But we don't know how it's going to respond. And so last year's project, this year's project is bigger, and next year's project is going to be even bigger.
Yeah. But I think we have to take a break here. But to answer your question, Mark,
No, I think that makes sense.
It's Tennessee.
Yeah.
No, there is
Tennessee. No, I like that it'll be
Don't say
different.
that.
Like we will decide
that. It's Colorado.
what might be our best crop, and then other places will
you see how I'm
decide their
dancing around the
best.
bush there.
It's so
It really depends. I mean, honestly, right now, if we're seed developers in the state of Colorado before everyone else gets on board, then we can really do well.
Good to know. All right, let's take one break. We'll finish strong. We'll be right back. Reefer Madness Radio.
Are you a medical marijuana patient or interested in finding out how to become one? Contact Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. Conveniently located on Hamden and Tamarack in the Whole Foods parking lot behind Proof of the Pudding. Mile High Wellness offers a wide variety of edibles, hashes, and some of Colorado's top strains. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern. 3525 South Tamarack, Suite 110, on the corner of Hamden and Tamarack. 720-382-8516. Mile High Wellness, where your care is our concern.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On grass. Runongrass.com.
National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right, you guys, we're back with Reefer Madness Radio and Jason Luave. Before we get started, please let me give a special shout out to our supporters at Medically Correct, the makers of the Incredibles bars. They come in a variety of flavors. What was the last flavor you had, Jason?
Banana.
Oh, yeah.
I like the banana. I like
The
the blueberry.
Like the monkey bar,
Yeah,
like
the
the
monkey
banana
bar,
yeah.
coconut thing.
They come in strawberry, they come in blueberry, they come in peach, which I have to say I think is my favorite. Although I love the monkey bar too.
The Boulder bar is next on my list. I've not tried the Boulder bar.
That's the like the toffee one. Yeah, I like that one too. The Buddha bar is also really good. Yeah. You know what? Actually, my favorite is the
original Buddha
300
bar?
milligram.
Mile higher.
No, not the Mile Higher, man. I'm talking about the
Dude, do not know.
the raspberry habanero.
He's joking.
Yeah, I love it, man.
That thing.
And I don't really usually go for raspberry flavored things, but again, the guys at Medically Correct, they're real chefs. So that raspberry that they use in there is not some artificially flavored gobbledygook. It's like real raspberries, and it doesn't overpower the flavor of the chocolate. You know,
But the habanero does.
no, that kicks in a few seconds later, and man, it lasts a good long time. And I love that buzz in my mouth from that nice heat. You know, what can I say?
Yeah,
All
right.
right.
The guys from Incredible were passing out candies on the flight back from Seattle. They weren't medicated.
Oh,
I wish.
yeah, I'm sure it was still delicious.
That was still good.
Oh my God, I saw something today that there was a woman on a flight that some guy had a feud with, and he was tweeting it live yesterday, right? She was angry because they were delayed on the tarmac, and she made a big scene to make sure that the flight attendant knew that it was Thanksgiving, and she had to get to her family for her Thanksgiving, or everything would be ruined if she wasn't there. And the flight attendant's like, we're all trying to get home to Thanksgiving, you know. And her response was, this isn't about you.
I know some people like that.
Right?
I think we all have an ego day.
Right. You know, everybody has their day like that. You know, I
Yeah.
think we're all entitled every once in a while.
Damn it, world, pay attention to me now.
I'm never like that.
Jay. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, the hemp. So I guess all these farmers are now in because they see that it worked out well and it's going to be profitable, right? Like this is a profitable venture.
I think it's going to
will be
require participation.
Well, here's something I'll share with you. So there was, and this is public information too. I was invited to a meeting, as well as many people were invited to this meeting. Actually, there was a press release put out by Hemp Inc. And gosh, Tony Budden from South Africa came. Some representatives from Australia, Holland, some other countries around the world were there, including myself and Robert Takata and Tom McLean and Eric Hunter, and I can go down that whole list.
I don't know any of those names, to be honest with you.
They're basically, those names are the core people of the hemp industry. Barbara Philippone, Summer Star, the hempsters, if you will.
Awesome.
It really was impressive, and that's not to say that they were all there. There were people in other states that couldn't make it, other countries that couldn't make it. Tim Pate and so on and so forth. So, but what is happening is that there is conversation going on, and so those people that you'll see out there, Jamin Shively, Ben Droz, Ben Dronkers, are having these conversations about working together and creating a multinational level relationship. Like I said earlier, this plant really wants to create a cooperative relationship. It almost demands it. And there's no reason to spin our wheels all simultaneously and waste things and see things collapse. We can see things all grow and prevent overproduction and so on and so forth.
Collab.
Yeah, so we can collaborate and orate together. That conversation really is critical, and because what I've noticed, like with the cannabis industry, and this is something that goes back for the last few years, especially, is that when someone puts an idea out there, it grows. It can expand not only itself, but it can turn into other ideas, and so that synergy that comes from it really is amazing. People can own their ideas. You can own your ingredients. Whatever. I think, honestly, if we share those ingredients, come up with your own recipes, come up with your own presentation, that's awesome. But let's share whatever those ingredients are, and that's where the hemp cultivars, the soil, the conversation of the soil is critical, the water. It's a permaculture conversation, our governance, our transportation, as I had mentioned earlier, the education about this plant so that people's stereotypes don't get involved and corrupt things, if you will. And I'll use an example not to create sort of a crazy language there, but there was actually a school, to simplify things, up in Canada nearby a hemp field, and the hemp field was being destroyed. And a couple people from a representative entity went over to the school and told them what it was, and the destruction stopped. And so I think if we do the same thing, just as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of your show, is that the pollen really won't be an issue if we mitigate this properly. If we talk about this, so if we talk about HEPA filters on your intakes and that kind of stuff, we can mitigate the so-called damage.
And I just want to.
What's your question, Chris?
I'm not sure what you're saying, Chris.
You could jump in.
What does it smell like?
What does what smell like?
Hemp.
What does hemp smell like? I have a shirt on. I don't know if I actually had it on for a couple days.
You mean out in the field?
Yeah. Sorry. Actually, that's a good question. It smells very different. Its varieties are just as diverse as what we have here on the table. Mm-hmm. So some of them are going to be sweet, some are pungent, some don't have a smell. You're not going to see as much resin, if you will, on the plant because it's not being produced to create THC or high CBDs. It's being created to make fiber yeah. and seed, and hopefully some leaf material too for juicing, for example. But
I'm forever telling
it smells
people,
nice. It smells nice.
Just to get back to just to get back to what you were talking about, Jason.
I have to use that because people ask me that a lot, actually, and it's funny because Adam Dunn from Hood Lab and Tony Budden from South Africa from his shop. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his shop. It's Hemporium. Thank you. He gets the same comments or visual effect, if you will, when people walk into their shops. They smell everything. They expect it to smell like cannabis, It's so funny. It is funny.
It's funny.
That's a good point. I've seen, I've been a couple of those, with the Hood Lab, and it did not occur to me to go up and smell the jacket.
It doesn't smell like.
Does it smell like diesel?
No.
Does it smell like OG?
But you know what? I bet they could do that. You can imagine going and finding a section of shirts
OG
and
cologne.
Right, and each shirt had like a different strain scent to it. So you had your Durban Poison, your Sour Diesel, your Jelly Bean. Oh, Jelly Bean.
That to me is the concept behind the hemp house, actually, which I could get into. Which is
I don't know about the marketed. I don't know how popular it would be. Like, here, wear this coat. Smell like weed all the time.
Well, not now.
Depends on what state you're in.
Yeah.
And by the way, they can't use smell on its own to entice you into a search. So if someone says, like, if a law enforcement officer says, and I'm not an attorney, but if a law enforcement officer says that you smell like cannabis and there really is no other probable cause, just ignore the question.
Yeah. You smell
That's
like
good to know.
ass.
Yeah.
Well, you smell like.
Because they're just, again, their job is to arrest you. So they're going to lie to you any way possible. Even
They're
if you
going
do
to try to
smell
find
cannabis.
a way to get you. Yeah, it's true.
Do you mind if I mention the hemp house thing?
Please, go
I
ahead
am
and mention.
intrigued by the idea of a hemp
Please do.
house.
So hemp houses have been built all over the world in various places for thousands of years and hundreds of years. And basically what we're doing here is to demonstrate it's not just about the house, it's about the foundation, the fabrics inside, the walls, the couches, the curtains, the clothing, the food on the counter, the kitchen cabinets, and the list goes on. And Tony Budden has done this in South Africa. We felt by doing it here, people could actually see it in person. It would be a little bit easier to access aside from going down to the southern hemisphere.
I think that'd be great.
But we want the electric car, for example, a hemp Mercedes electric car parked in the driveway, the hemp flag, which is flown over our nation's capital, also the Colorado capital, Vermont's capital, as well as other places. That's going to be flying above it. But we are now looking for different properties. We have some residential sites, but we're also looking in Denver right now. So we'll see where that goes. But it's going to be a platform for everything. It's an opportunity to talk about medicine. It's an opportunity to host shows, reality shows, medical shows, events.
That'd be great.
Have a party event kind of roof, if you will, a garden, enclosed garden, and those kinds of things. So we can demonstrate.
Hemp, I guess you could make a lot out of hemp, but would have some sort of rules as far as only hemp, or like would it be more of a way to show off hemp in the modern world with other
as much hemp as we can fit in there?
Sure.
And so it really is to demonstrate the various materials that are available or will be available, whether it's hemp block, hemp concrete. It could be the insulation, soft fill insulation, hard fill insulation. We have access to MDF, sort of medium density fiberboards, acoustic paneling, and then wall systems that are made out of hemp. And you're going to see some steel in there. You're going to see, especially if it's a commercial building.
I was going to say, would it be a commercial building, or would it be, because when you first said a hemp house, I'm thinking, like a cute, like 1-bedroom cottage would be a little awesome thing.
It really depends on what we really
want
depends.
a 4-bedroom house, right?
Well,
you want to show what's possible.
It really depends. We have offers up in Evergreen and Castle Rock for 1,400 square foot opportunities, 3,200 square foot opportunities, off grid sites. I mean, everything has been thrown at us. And so it's a hard question to answer.
It's exciting.
It's very exciting. So we're bringing a lot of people on board to be part of this. I want this to be really a learning process for all of us.
I would think that contractors and things would be excited to.
A lot of them are.
Work on it or kind of get on the forefront of a new material and new
interior designers and actually students up at CU. I did one of my degrees up at CU Boulder, and it's interesting to see the interest up there. I'm trying to reach out to a lot of other folks that I know locally that I've worked on straw bale over the years and house additions that I've done myself. So it's going to be a big group of people. Off-grid lighting experts are interested in this. Alternative energy systems opportunities. So.
The opportunities are pretty endless when it comes to hemp.
Yeah.
No, especially I feel like artists or even just professionals of any kind. If you give them a little bit, okay, you got to work with hemp.
Yes.
But then go, then go from there. Then I think you'll see a lot of people's creativity and knowledge and just people bringing their professionalism to the board.
We have some containers of hemp materials coming in, so we will really invite people to come and acquire some of this material to experiment with, sculptures and other things.
Right on. These are really exciting times, you guys. We're just at 7:30 now, so we're going to have to wrap up our show. Thanks very much, Jason, for joining us and answering our questions about hemp.
Is there a place where we can learn more about hemp?
You can learn more by going to Google, which is great, but please check out our website at teamhemp.com, hempcleans.com, or my personal website, lauv.com, like mauve, the color, with an L, L-A-U-V as in Victor, E.com.
Right on.
That's awesome. Because, I still feel fairly not as knowledgeable as I could be about hemp, considering I love the female version so much. I feel
Well,
like
definitely pick up The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Hare. He really is the key to what we know today.
Great. That's good to know.
All right.
Awesome. I think this is a good show, Jay.
Absolutely, Mark. I agree. Thanks for tuning in, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having on. That was awesome.
We'll catch you next week on Reefer Madness Radio.
Radio.